fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
get your money shit together.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz. I am back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. I'm excited for this one because this week's guest is somebody who I have been fawning over for years on the internet. I haven't really ever spoken to her before this, but I have stalked her very closely. I read her blog for years. I stalked her on Instagram. She was the kind of person who I always had an email ready to be sent in my draft folder, but never actually sent it. And when I saw some of the really cool stuff she's doing lately, especially during the coronavirus quarantine and all of that, I got the courage to reach out and ask her to be on the show, and I am so excited because not only is she a badass, but the topic we talk about is relevant to everybody right now. So let me just jump right in and introduce our guest. Today on the show, we have Sarah von Bargen. She is the founder of Yes and Yes. It's a blog, it's a website. She does a lot of incredible things, like write about a lot of things to help you better maximize how you spend your time, money, and energy on purpose. She's been writing about this for 11 years, so long. She also is the founder of Bank Boost, which is a program, a coaching course program that allows you to fix up and make over your finances. She has a free workbook called How to Figure Out What Makes You Happy, and a lot of other crazy cool things. Her Instagram is my favorite thing to follow because not only does she show you how she decorated her apartment on like a crazy cool budget, but she also shows you how you can take things from your fridge, like leftover ingredients, things you have no use for, and cook up amazing meals. She is the best person to figure out life hacks when you want to stick on a budget. And what I like the most about Sarah is she's the kind of person that's not going to tell you you can't have what you want. She's very clear about it. In all of her writing and all of her bios, she tells you that she found ways to save money while she also was finding an amazing apartment to live in and not getting the thing she wanted, but she just found ways to do it without spending a lot of money. So on the show today, we talk about money hacks. Sarah has some great things that you can do so that you can figure out within an hour ways to save yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. She has a free PDF you can download to make this happen. I did it and I saved so much money just going through her step-by-step actions. She talks about all of that and more on today's show. So keep pressing play, keep listening to this episode because Sarah is going to blow your mind. And as always, my dear friends, come hang out with us in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. We're waiting to hang out with you, 1,500 people there. Here to support, here to help, here to make your dreams happen. And if you're listening and you like this show, here's what you can do. Right now, you're holding your phone or you're on your computer. Scroll down, find the stars, leave us a review. Your reviews matter. They help more people find this show, and they help me get to bring on incredible guests like our friend Sarah. Enjoy. This episode is brought to you by finallythebride.com. If you didn't know, I am getting married this year, but the problem is I am the worst at making decisions. I've been to so many weddings on my own. I need your help. Finally the Bride is a project I launched a couple of months ago after getting engaged, where strangers can come on the website and vote on all different things. There are new polls released on the first of the month, and the cool thing is I am writing about the entire experience, so you can check out how things are unfolding. I release a new chapter of the book every single month, so head to the website, vote your heart away, and sign up to get the book. It drops in your inbox on the 15th of the month with a new chapter inside. Finallythebride.com. Help me plan this wedding, especially because in 2020, everything's gotten weird.
How would you describe what you do and who you are to a person you just met at a party?
Oh gosh. Well, my elevator pitch is that I am a writer, educator, and coach who helps people spend their time, money, and energy on purpose.
I love it. And I've been following you for years. I mean, you've been blogging since 2008, before blogs were known, before blogs were cool. How did you get to this journey of being able to want to help people with money and with decisions they make with their money?
Oh gosh. Well, it started, it essentially started, I thought the way that I navigated money was totally normal. I think we all think, the way I do things, the way my brain works, that's how everybody else does stuff. When I started blogging, I was an ESL teacher at a nonprofit. I made $16 an hour. And while earning $16 an hour, I was paying down $50,000 worth of school debt. And I was also living in Minneapolis. And obviously Minneapolis is not New York or San Francisco, but it's a major city with the cost of living associated with it that goes with that. And I was blogging. And so, I would publish photos of like what I did with my weekends and what my apartment looked like and what my outfits looked like. And it came to my attention that someone in my social circle believed that I had a trust fund because they did not believe, they knew what my job was, and they did not believe that it was possible for me to do the things that I was doing and dress the way I was dressing and live in the neighborhood that I was living in on my nonprofit salary, which is obviously, that's completely hilarious because my parents are public school teachers in a low income school district in rural Minnesota. There is no trust fund. But so that was the first time that I sort of realized like, wow, I must be dealing with money differently than other people are if somebody mistakenly believes that I have a trust fund. And that's when I sort of started to realize like I'm doing this differently and maybe I should be talking about it because clearly I'm doing something and I'm navigating this in a way that other people aren't.
Yeah, and your story is so interesting because a lot of what you do, and I love reading about you and everything you say because you mentioned on your website in quite a few places that you've paid down $50K of debt while earning $16 an hour. And then you go on to mention while living in the cute apartment, going out with friends, and getting the occasional latte, all of those things that people who feel they have to budget and save money can't do. So the first thing I want to ask you is, how do you think you got your money education? Like, how did you learn this?
I mean, honestly, I'm incredibly fortunate that this was stuff that was mostly modeled by my parents. Like they did not openly talk about money. Like I did not know what their salary was. I don't know what their mortgage is, but they really modeled spending in a way that aligned with their values. So we would take road trips every summer, which, is not necessarily something, a lot of families can't necessarily afford to take, a month-long family vacation every summer, especially on a public school teacher salary. But the reason that we did that and the reason we could afford to do it is because we were camping most of the time we did it. When we would go to the grocery store and like buy food at the deli and then like go to a park and like eat it at the picnic table. We would do lots of hiking. We weren't necessarily like eating at restaurants 3 meals a day. And throughout the rest of the year, we didn't eat out a ton. And if you grew up in, this is going to sound wild if you did not grow up in a rural area, but like a lot of the meat that my parents ate was literally animals that my dad hunted. And the house, I grew up in Minnesota. We have 6 months of winter. They heated the house with wood from trees that my dad cut down and chopped up. Mm-hmm. And if you can imagine how much a heating bill costs per month in Minnesota, I mean, no joke, my parents truly probably saved $100,000 by heating their house that way. So they just modeled, being creative, being strategic, understanding where they could save money so then they could put money towards these other things, so that we could take vacations, so that I could go to summer camp, so that I could, take voice lessons and that kind of stuff.
So what would you say to a person who's listening right now who is having a bunch of money struggles? They really need to get serious about cleaning up their finances, understanding their finances, and fixing some of the things in the past, but also feels like in order to do that, they have to give up their life. They have to give up their wants, their needs, their desires. They have to live a different life than what they imagine. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say number one, and this might sound Pollyanna-ish, but I've seen it be true for hundreds of my students and clients, is that very often the life that you truly want and the things that you truly want are available to you at a lower price point than you think. And I'm not talking about like buying Louis Vuitton. I'm talking about like the feelings that you want to feel, the way that you want to feel is probably much more accessible to you than you believe. Like when I talk to my clients and students and we talk about like, what do you want? What feelings are you chasing when you buy these things? How do you want your life to look and feel? And very often people want things like, I want to be able to read a novel in the morning for an hour while I like sit on a cute piece of furniture and look out the window. And I mean, honestly, that is not an expensive thing to experience. So first of all, I would say that it is totally possible that what you actually want, the feelings that you truly want to experience, are more accessible than you believe. And also, this is going to sound sort of counterintuitive, but for many of us, not for all of us, obviously, but for many of us, we are mindlessly spending on things that don't actually bring us joy and don't actually add to our lives. Maybe a little bit less now during a pandemic. But for many of us, we are spending hundreds or thousands of dollars a month on things that don't actually add to our lives. So when you stop buying stuff that you don't actually like that much, that isn't actually adding that much to your life, you're going to have so much more money left over to buy the stuff that does actually add to your life. One of the exercises that I encourage people to work through, print out, and again, maybe not your April bank statement because a lot of people have sort of been forced to reduce their spending. But if you look at, maybe print out like your January bank and credit card statements or your February bank and credit card statements, and then get 3 highlighters, a pink one, a green one, a yellow one, and work through literally every purchase. And if it was a purchase that truly brought you joy, that truly you can look at it and say like, absolutely, God, I love that sweater. I wear it all the time. If it's a purchase that truly brought you joy, it's green. If it's an unavoidable purchase like rent or insurance, it's yellow. And if it's a regrettable purchase or a mindless purchase or a purchase you honestly don't even really remember making, it's pink, just like a stoplight. And then I want you to add up those categories, and most people will be absolutely blown away by what they find. And also, as a side note, if you add this up and you discover that you have this can be a really emotional exercise, and I just want anyone who's listening who's going to try this, whatever number you get, you are not the first person to get that number. I have had clients discover that they spent $15,000 a year eating out, and this was a couple that did not have children. These are just 2 adults who spent $15,000 a year eating out. There are people who realized that they forgot to turn off their Facebook ads and they'd been paying like $2,000 a month on a Facebook ad they didn't even realize they were running. So whatever you discover from this exercise, you are not the first person to discover something like this. You are not the first person to get that number. And it's okay to have an emotional reaction to this because money is emotional and it's hard. But if you can figure out where you're spending that money that's not actually bringing you joy, you can stop buying that stuff. And I mean, it's a long process. It's not like you realize like, oh, I don't get joy from buying shoes and then you never buy shoes again. It took you a lifetime to develop these habits. It's going to take a minute to rein them in. But I think that's a really good first step, is figuring out where you're spending on money on stuff that isn't actually giving you any happiness on the return of that investment.
Yeah, and then here's the thing, though. How do you get over the regret? Because sometimes when I do this, I get, like you said, it's an emotional experience. I get so mad at myself for in that moment thinking that this purchase was going to bring me joy. And now I'm sitting there thinking, I am so mad I wasted all of this money. So not only do I find myself regretting things, but then I find myself having decision fatigue in the future because now I can't decide if this will bring me joy or not. So I don't do anything. So A, how do you get over the regret? And then B, how do you look at a purchase and really know deep down inside that that is the right thing to buy?
That is a great question. Well, so I would say, first of all, in terms of the regret, so 2 things. If you can sell it or if you can return it, do so.
Yeah.
Because that will go a long way towards dealing with regret. So either sell it, return it, and one of the things I teach inside Bank Boost is the importance of advocating for yourself and being uncomfortable. And so sometimes it's, emailing that thing that you signed up for and saying like, hey, like, I know that your return policy is 30 days and I know it's 32, like, would you be open to like giving me a partial refund, or could I get a credit? Like, advocating for yourself is a muscle, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. And also, when we go through the hassle of returning things or asking for a refund or selling them, I mean, honestly, it's annoying to do that, and it will also like help us be more intentional in the future, because we remember, oh God, it was such a hassle to go stand in line at Target to return that watering can or whatever. So A, how can you recoup that cost? B, I think, and this is, how my brain works. It's not how every brain works, but I know that regret is a pointless emotion, and spending energy and time on it is not productive. And so I would rather be focusing on how I can change my behavior in the future. But also, I think it's worth, kind of being gentle with ourselves, because most of us, like, we made the best decision in the moment that we could. And it made sense at the time. And also, and this is verging on therapy, but a lot of times we developed these coping mechanisms because they solved a problem successfully for us in the past. And now things have changed, and maybe that behavior does not solve that problem anymore, but we still have that behavior. So maybe, you went to college out of state, you didn't know anybody, and all the people that you wanted to hang out with, always went out drinking and spent tons of money on cocktails, and that's how you made friends. So in your mind, spending a lot of money going out equals friends and social support. And even though things have changed and now we're older and maybe that's not how people connect anymore, we've built those neural pathways that in order to have supportive friendships, I need to spend tons of money on cocktails and appetizers because that's how I make friends. So I think it's just understanding that every behavior is a need trying to be met, and these choices and these behaviors and habits, at one point they served a need. Maybe they don't serve a need anymore and it's time to change. But just, trying to toe the line between holding yourself accountable and being gentle with yourself, which is, I mean, we're all working on that all the time. It's hard. But I think that can help you navigate through regret a little bit.
I really like that, because even when you were just talking right now, I was letting some of my past purchase regrets go. I mean, there's a couple things in 2019 that I'm holding on to with anger that I bought, and, things should just happen. So even when you were saying in the moment, I took it as in the moment, Jen, you made the best decision you could.
Yes.
That helped me move past it a little bit. And I like that you said that, because as long as we have some financial education, we can make some better decisions. And you offer a lot of that. I mean, you have a lot of incredible offerings. You have the More Money, More Happy Bootcamp. You have Bank Boost. And one of the things that I recently signed up for, and I did, was the 1 hour money multiplier, where you give tips on how in 1 hour you can earn yourself some money back. And there were two things from that money multiplier experience that I wanted to take away and talk about. And the first was the topic of an emergency fund. I mean, one of the things you posted was that 58% of Americans do not have more than $1,000 in their emergency fund, which I thought was interesting, because up until a year ago, I didn't even know what an emergency fund was. So I want to talk about right now, especially in a time when people are getting laid off, they're losing their jobs, or they're just really, really trying to save money. Should people be putting money into an emergency account if right now money is such a question mark for them?
Oh gosh. Well, okay. So there are two approaches to this. There is the emotional psychological approach, and then there's the like numbers-based approach. And I'm going to tell you both of them because they're the opposite. And whoever's listening, you do what works for you. So the emotional psychological approach is that every human in a perfect world should have $1,000 sitting in cash that they can access as soon as they need. And that in theory, that money will help you with unexpected expenses. It would help you leave an unsafe relationship. It would help you leave an unsafe job. It will create psychological and emotional safety. So that is one approach. The approach that I preach, which is a little slightly, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but if you have credit card debt, I would encourage you to put extra money towards your credit card debt. And this is why. Let's say there is a 20% chance that you end up needing your emergency fund. That means there's an 80% likelihood that you don't need your emergency fund. But there is a 100% likelihood that your credit card company is charging you 18% on your debt. So it's from a numbers perspective, you are much better off paying off your credit card debt than having an emergency fund, because essentially if there is an emergency, you could just put it on your credit card. But if you are building an emergency fund while still maintaining credit card debt, it's sort of like a, 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation. And also credit card companies are terrible. Like they're the worst, and they're making money on nothing. So I would say that's sort of my not entirely helpful response, is that in a perfect world, you want to be paying off your credit card debt because you are absolutely paying 18% interest on it or more. But I also understand that some people emotionally and psychologically feel a lot better having an emergency fund, even if they have the emergency fund while simultaneously having credit card debt.
Yeah, and speaking of credit cards, the other thing on your money multiplier that was clutch, especially during the shelter in place when we're all online constantly, was deleting credit card information from your computer. I'm so guilty of saving my credit card places and doing the one-click checkout option, and then checking my credit card at the end of the month going, how did this happen? And that is not a response a person should have when they look at their credit card. So what made you decide to add that into the money multiplier? I mean, it's such a great tip.
Well, so I study a lot of psychology stuff because I try to include it in most of my courses and my coaching offerings. And there's something called a pattern interrupt. And a pattern interrupt is when you sort of put a barrier, you put a hurdle between you and habitual behavior that you are trying to change. And so you can guess that removing your credit card information from your computer is a pattern interrupt, because it is very, very, very easy to have a few cocktails or have a bad day or fall too far down an Instagram hole where everybody has beautiful things, and then to go over to computer and then, one click shop your way through your feelings.
Yeah.
But if you remove the credit card number from your computer and you create that pattern interrupt, you create that hurdle that if you want to buy the inflatable swan that goes in the pool like that Instagram influencer has, you're going to have to get up, you're going to have to go find your wallet, you're going to have to dig your credit card out, walk back to your computer and type it in. It is surprising how much of a deterrent that is for most of us.
Amen to that. And even in the past couple of weeks of just doing that, I have found that I saved myself hundreds of dollars.
Yes!
And yeah, I mean, even through the money multiplier, I did all 5 tips, the gift cards, everything. Like it was such a helpful resource. So I want to end this with a couple things, but before we end, I do want you to tell everyone, what are your current offerings? What are the current programs that people can join in the next couple of months or even later this year to have you help them with their finances?
Well, so we just closed a live round of Bank Boost, which is my live 5-week program where I help people earn more money, keep more money, and still enjoy their lives while doing it. And we're in the process, in an absolutely perfect world, we want to set up Bank Boost. So we have a live version of it going up on the 1st of every month. So it's just sort of always available. And when you're ready to do it, there's always a live version you can join. Until that is set up, we will be setting up a self-paced version, which I think is going to be $72, which I would say the vast majority of my students end up adding thousands of dollars to their bank account in a month. So I feel like $72 is a pretty good deal for that. And I also offer one-on-one coaching for people who want more of a hands-on approach, or they have a really specific situation that they want to work through, or they just know that they need that level of accountability.
Amazing. And I'm going to ask you the question that we end all of our interviews on. Sarah, fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
get your money shit together. Yes, pay off your debt, start saving for the stuff that you really care about.
I love it. And where can people find out more about you and all of your offerings?
At yesandyes.org, or I post on Instagram stories and on my Instagram grid very regularly, and you can find me there at Yes and Yes blog.
Amazing. Sarah's Instagram is awesome. She has a really cool thing called the No Grocery Challenge, where she takes old food and makes it look incredible. If there is one person you follow, and I've never said this on any of my interviews, you really should follow Sarah's Instagram.
Oh, thank you. I love doing it. I love doing Instagram stories.
Well, you are amazing at it. And thank you so much again, Sarah. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.